Hey, this is Robot here at scooterwest.com. Kind of an important task that all home mechanics should know on their Vespas or modern Vespas is how to remove the muffler. Because as everybody knows, the rear tires, that's kind of the most frequently replaced consumable item on these scooters here. And to gain access to the rear tire on any of these scooters, you got to remove the muffler. First of all, you need an M6 Allen fastener. Pretty straightforward. Just two fasteners that hold this in place. And I'm just going to crack them loose. I'm not even removing them all the way. So they're both they're loose enough to probably spin off by hand, but it's still holding the pipe in place. You can see the pipe drop just a little bit. As with all the modern fuel injected scooters, they have an oxygen sensor that helps regulate the fuel to the engine. You know, as the atmosphere changes, altitude, whatever, it's a pretty important little sensor. You want to take care not to damage it. I found the best solution on any of these modern Vespas or the Primaveras and Sprints specifically, is just to remove the small sensor. And it's a 14 millimeter. You can get the open end wrench on there. Make sure it's on there. Usually they're not all that tight. And once you have it loose, you can start spinning off. Obviously, you don't want to be doing this if you still have a hot exhaust, you know, touching it with your hands. And it needs a little bit more. Sometimes they bind a little bit because it's stainless steel on a stainless steel header, and that tends to cause the two metals to gall together. So, you know, just be very careful with the wires. It will handle the twisting. It only requires a few turns to remove it, and see how it just kind of want to return to its original position. You can leave that off to the side. A lot easier than going up in there and removing the clip and the connector. Could do that, but since we're going to replace this pipe, I'm just going to leave the sensor in place right there. All right, from the underside, you'll see two copper colored nuts, and they're not at the best angle to gain access to. I'm using a 1/4 inch extension, 1/4 inch drive socket, 10 millimeter, and a 1/4 inch ratchet here. This first one's pretty simple. You can get to it with a straight socket, and sometimes they're pretty tight. So I'm just going to crack that one loose. And there's one additional tool. You could use a wobble or a shorter extension to get to that front copper nut, but Snap-on sells a specialty 10 millimeter wobble that's a little deeper than a normal wobble. And I'm going to go ahead and use that. Makes the job a lot easier. Again, if you don't have this, you could definitely get away with removing that front header nut with just a shorter extension. Get the wrench a little further up in there, and you'll be able to break that free. And since I already have the back one loose, the front one usually comes right off pretty easy. And I'll go ahead and use the flashlight moving. Get the ratchet off there, and I'm just hand spinning this nut right off. Again, the muffler's not all the way loose. I just have those two Allen fasteners that hold the pipe in place, you know, just crack loose, so it's still suspended by the engine, those two fasteners. With the loose header and the muffler's cold, I can support the muffler while I remove these two fasteners here. It goes a lot easier than if the fasteners are dragging on that boss of the muffler. So there's your first fastener on the lower, and then the upper fastener. It's very important if you're reinstalling the stock exhaust, use the original washers that are included with the muffler here. They're both the same length. They have a special washer that's got a serrated edge that goes against the screw. And then there's a very thick fender style washer. And once the muffler is loose, you'll see the exhaust flange will want to drop down. And I'm supporting the muffler from the back, and I kind of rock it. If you saw what I did, I kind of rocked it to the back, and it will pull right out. There's not much effort in there. If you try to pull it straight off, it's going to want to hang up on everything of the engine. A lot easier if you just pull that right off. And now you've gained access to the rear wheel here. You've got the cotter pin. You remove that with a pair of diagonal cutters, or carefully with needle nose or vice grip. You got the castle nut cap here that removes, and then there's a 24 millimeter, you'll need a 24 millimeter socket to break that free. And there's two ways you could zip that off with an impact. The tire wants to spin. You have somebody hold the rear brake real tight to hold that in place. Or you could use the clutch holding tool, which is tool ETC, and that will hold the tire in place so you can break that free with a wrench.